Good evening, students. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll get started. So yesterday we saw concept of vertical circular motion, right? Then we saw the potential energy of a spring. I hope you guys are clear by now. So today we are going to see another independent topic that is called as collisions. Okay.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir, I have a doubt in example from laws of motion, sir.
Okay. Shall we discuss at the end of the session?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So remind me once I complete the topic. So before we end, I'll clear your doubt.
Okay, sir.
So write down the heading as collisions, guys. Right. See, this concept of collisions is not new to you, right? We see in our day-to-day life? Can you give me some real-time examples where we see this term collision, or we use this collision to do something? See, collision is actually not a negative thing. Collision doesn't always mean that accident or something like that. In our sometimes in sports also we do. Can you give me some examples?
When the shuttle hits the racket.
Yes, that is one of the examples. So when you shuttle, what will happen? When the shuttle comes and hits the racket, it is, we can technically say that the racket and the shuttle are colliding, right? So that is an example of collision. Anything else?
Sir, is kicking a ball collision?
Sorry, is
Kicking a ball.
taking a ball. Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you
Is kicking a ball a collision?
kicking a ball? Yes, it is a collision, right? Because it is, see, whenever generally what happens when two objects are coming in contact with each other, right? By kicking the ball, what exactly are you doing? So ball is at rest, right? Initially, its velocity is 0, right? Let's say there is a football player who's running and coming, and he's kicking this. What will happen? It will start flying in a particular direction, depending on the direction in which he gives the necessary momentum. So the momentum from the person is transferred to a ball which was at rest, due to which two things are achieved. One is the ball is in motion, and the second is you're able to control its direction, right? That is an example. You think of a billiards ball, snooker, it's an example of collision. Carom board is an example of collision. When a batsman hits a ball, it's an example of collision. So in all these things, what exactly is happening? What are the two important parameters that you're able to observe? So one is, see, for example, if I talk about a carom board, let's say there is a striker and there is a coin, right? So initially what will happen, you will keep the striker in that line, right? You will have a set of parallel lines, you will keep it on the line so that some portion is going to come out or something like that. Initially both are at rest. If you want to hit this coin, are you directly hitting the coin, or are you taking the help of the striker? So you obviously take the help of the striker, right? Let's say the hole is here. Okay, this is the pocket into which you want to drop this coin into, right? Now tell me one thing, guys. If the coin is here and the hole is here, where will you keep the striker? You will try to keep the striker as close as possible to that red color circle, right? You will try to keep it as straight as possible. Am I right? Correct, Ada? Where you want to hit this and it directly goes and falls into that hole, right? In this case, what is the physics involved behind it? What are the science involved behind it? Yes, of course, we are able to play the game and see all those things, but what is the science involved behind it? Can you tell me the sequence of incidents in terms of momentum and kinetic energy that is happening with respect to the striker and the coin? If you have to break down, if you have to dissect and see them as individual steps, what will you say? Initial condition, what is happening? The coin is at rest. Is someone willing to try? So the coin is at rest. What about the striker? It is also at rest. Guys, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So both are at rest. So when both are at rest, I can say velocity of the whole velocity of the system is 0. And secondly, both these objects have mass associated with them. So can I say that the momentum of the system is also 0? Accepted. Right. Now what you do, you take the help of your finger when you hit the striker which was initially at rest, right? What is happening to it? It is gaining some momentum. And when this momentum is gained by the particle, it is going and hitting the coin exactly at the location where you intend to hit it, depending on whether you want to push it at a certain angle or you want to directly hit it. Correct? When you hit it, what will happen? The striker will also, after the collision takes place, the striker maybe it will travel for some more distance and it will stop. That is what you want, right? You don't want the striker also to go and fall. So based on that calculation only, you will be giving the necessary momentum. Correct idea? Right? So it will travel for some more time. Now what will happen? It has some final momentum. Correct? It will experience friction, all those things the board has. That is why we use powder and all those things. After that, what will happen? The coin which was at rest will gain some energy. Correct? Gain some, rather than saying energy, I can say it gains some momentum. So after gaining the momentum, what will happen? Now this coin will go and fall into the pocket. Right? Now, can you tell me the sequence of incidents that has happened? The momentum which was available for, I will call this particle as a projectile. In terms of physics, in terms of carom board, it is striker and a coin, all those things. In terms of physics, I'll call this as a projectile and I'll call this coin as a target. Right? So you will have a projectile and a target. So what does the projectile do? It will go and hit the target. In that process, it is exchanging its momentum and kinetic energy. Correct? So whenever you have, see, this is how you need to think, guys. Okay, you should not memorize anything. Listen to me carefully. Wherever in physics you see the concept of mass and velocity, what are all the permutations, combinations that are possible with m and v? If you take m and multiply it with v, what physical quantity do you get?
Momentum.
You get linear momentum. If you take mass and velocity, you take mass and multiply it with velocity square and divide it with 2. What is the quantity of
Kinetic energy.
kinetic energy? Similarly, if you have some other quantity where it is mv cubed by 3 or something, if it has some other name, then that name should also come to your picture, come to your mind. Okay. So in this context, I am able to see only two things. What are they? Linear momentum and kinetic energy. Correct? Now listen to this carefully, guys. So based on how this momentum and kinetic energy are getting transferred between the so-called projectile and the target, collisions are basically majorly classified into two types. One is called as elastic collision and the second is called as inelastic collision. Okay, one is called as elastic and the second is called as inelastic collision. So collision, so whenever you're doing a classification, right, you need some differentiating factor. Okay. Now see. So the basic classification of collision takes place as elastic and inelastic. So in an elastic collision, what will happen is linear momentum and kinetic energy are conserved. Whereas in inelastic collision, linear momentum is conserved, but kinetic energy is lost. Okay. Now tell me, is this carom example which we took an example of elastic or inelastic collision? Is it an example of elastic or inelastic collision?
Elastic.
It is not an elastic, it is an example of inelastic. How did I say it is inelastic? Because I told something is lost. Kinetic energy is lost. So if some form of, we know the fact that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, but it can be converted from one form to another, right? So when kinetic energy is lost, in which form is it produced? See, logically you think that I take that striker and hit a set of coins. What is the first thing you will be able to observe? You will be able to hear some sound, right? It is not a silent game. You will be able to hear some sound. So where does that sound come from? The sound comes from the kinetic energy being lost. So it is an example of inelastic collision. Okay. So in inelastic, what will happen? Momentum is conserved, but kinetic energy is lost. Okay. Again, in inelastic collision, there is something called as perfectly inelastic. So what happens in perfectly inelastic is both objects stick together and move. After what? After collision. Okay. So if this kind of a scenario is taking place, that is what we call it as a perfectly inelastic collision. So to speak honestly, elastic is only an ideal condition. We are studying only for theoretical purpose, but in everything else, it is almost inelastic or perfectly inelastic collision. So how are the collisions classified into elastic and inelastic based on what? Based on whether momentum and kinetic energy both are conserved or only momentum is conserved. So important point to be noted here is whatever is the type of collision you're trying to talk about, the momentum is a factor which is always conserved. Okay, please make an important note of it. Okay. Next. Let's say there is one object like this, there is another object like this. They both are coming and getting hit like this. Right? So if this is the direction of motion before collision and this is the direction of motion after collision also. Okay, this kind of a collision is said to be one-dimensional or head-on collision. Okay, suppose the objects are moving in this direction and this is the direction before collision, and after collision, let's say one object is moving like this and the other is moving like this. Means from the line of impact, you're able to observe that there is some deviation that has taken place. Then this type of a collision is said to be two-dimensional collision or oblique collision. Am I clear till this point?
So can you once repeat two-dimensional collision?
See, in two dimension, again the same example. Let's say there is a coin here and you're keeping the striker here. Okay, you're keeping the striker here and you're giving a momentum. So what will happen? This will go and hit this coin tangentially. So when it is hit tangentially, the direction of the coin is changed. Right? So the direction in which the striker was traveling is called as the line of impact. Okay, and this is the direction. See, the coin will start traveling in some direction and the striker might continue to move in the same direction. So if there is a deviation in the path apart from the line of impact that has taken place, then it is called as a two-dimension or oblique collision. You're able to understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir. I understood.
Good. Okay. See, now the example is there. Can you tell me this is an example of one-dimensional or a two-dimensional collision?
Two-dimensional.
It is two-dimensional because X and Y both are coming into the picture. Right? This one?
Head-on collision.
It is a head-on. It's a one-dimensional collision. Okay. Now what we are going to do is, now our job is to derive the final velocities of particles. See, there's a slightly big derivation, so concentrate, guys. Final velocities of particles involved in one-dimensional elastic collision. So we'll be calculating the final velocities of particles involved in one-dimensional elastic collision. So consider a situation like this. There is an object of mass m1 moving with a speed u1, is going and hitting m2 with a velocity u2. Okay. So this is before collision. After collision, what will happen? They both are traveling with velocities, let's say v1, and it is traveling with a velocity v2. So for collision to happen once, u1 should be greater than u2 and v1 should be less than v2. Correct? So with respect to elastic collision, what is conserved?
Momentum.
Momentum and kinetic energy, both. So applying conservation of linear momentum, what can we say? M1 U1 plus M2 U2 is equal to M1 V1 plus M2 V2. Correct? Let this be equation number 1.
Sir,
1 minute. Yeah, tell me.
sir, a 1D or 2D collision can either be elastic or non-elastic.
No, that cannot happen. What happened to my pages? I don't know. I lost the pages. Sure, I have to draw it again. Huh? Can you repeat the question? Sorry. What did you ask?
Sir, if the collision is 1D, it can either be elastic or it can be inelastic, right?
Yeah, it can be inelastic also. Yes, it can. It can be one-dimensional elastic or one-dimensional inelastic also.
And same for 2D.
Yeah, same. Okay. So applying conservation of momentum, what can we say? Actually, it should be conservation of linear momentum. M1 U1 plus M2 U2 should be equal to M1 V1 plus M2 V2. Okay. Let this be equation number 1. Similarly, applying conservation of kinetic energy, what will happen? Half m1 u1 square plus half m2 u2 square is equal to half m1 v1 square plus half m2 v2 square. Okay. So half will get cancelled. Now what we will do is, we will take m1 terms together, u1 square minus v1 square is equal to m2 into v2 square minus u2 square. Okay. This I will write it as m1 into u1 minus v1 into u2 plus v2, a square minus b square formula, is equal to m2 into v2 minus u2 into v2 plus u. Okay. I'll do a small change here. Copy it along with me. m1 into u1 minus v1 is equal to m2 into v2 minus u2. Let this be equation number. And let this be equation number 2. Copy it. Okay. So if you divide the second equation with 1, then m1 into u1 minus v1 into u2, oh sorry, it will be u1 plus v1. Yeah, into u1 plus v1 is equal to m2 into v2 minus u2 into v2 plus u2, the whole divided by m1 into u1 minus v1, the whole divided by m2 into v2 minus u2. Did you understand what I did? So m1, u1 minus v1 will get cancelled. m2, v2 minus u2 will get cancelled. So u1 plus v1 is equal to v2 plus u2. Please write it down.
Sir, can you please show the second equation?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Now listen. So from this, can I say v2 is equal to, okay, I want to define something from here. v2 minus v1, can I say it is u1 minus u2? Right. So this is v2 minus v1 divided by u1 minus u2. This is equal to 1. Correct? See, this v2 minus v1 is called as relative velocity of separation. The name of it, okay, relative velocity, because it is v2 minus v1. u1 minus u2 is called as relative velocity of approach. Okay, so v2 minus v1 divided by u1 minus u2, can I say it is the ratio of relative velocity of separation and relative velocity of approach? Correct? So this ratio of relative velocity of separation and relative velocity of approach is called as, please note it guys, it's called as coefficient of restitution, and it is represented by the symbol small e.
Sir, v2 minus v1 is relative velocity of
Separation.
So can you explain that separation and approach?
It's named a name, that's it. Relative velocity of separation. Why we call it as separation is because V2, see, V2 is the final velocity of the second particle. V1 is the final velocity of the first particle. They are getting separated, no? Because what did I say? V2 is greater than V1. They are not going to meet again. They are going to get separated only. So
Okay,
that's why
sir.
it is called as relative velocity of separation. Whereas here, what happened? U1 is greater than U2. Means they both are approaching. Approaching means coming close to each other. So since U1 is greater than U2, U1 minus U2 is called as relative velocity of approach. It's a name. That's it. Okay. So I hope you understood what is coefficient of restitution. See, some books refer to this as elasticity of collision also. The reason is very simple. See, this is actually a slightly drifted topic, but I have to explain it here only, or else you will not understand. So, this E is there, no? E is equal to V2 minus V1 divided by U1 minus U2. So, in the case of elastic collision, what is that we got? In the case of elastic collision, E is equal to 1. Correct? E is equal to 1. That's what we got. V2 minus V1 by U1 minus U2 is 1. So if somebody gives you, let's say this is coming in 1 mark question. If E is equal to 1, what is the nature of collision? You should say it is an elastic collision. 1 dimension or 2 dimension, that is separate. But it is elastic collision. Okay. Similarly, for inelastic collision, what will happen? E will be greater than 0 and less than 1. Okay. In the case of perfectly inelastic collision, E is equal to 0.
Sir, what is restitution?
It's a name, Dawla. See, the name is there, no? Generally, is something like assembling. Okay. So here restitution means the extent to which they are able to come back to their original condition. The extent to which they are able to recover themselves. If I have to give you an example, let's say there is a ball which is made of rubber. Okay. So generally, when you take a rubber ball and hit it to the floor, let's say it is not so hard, or it's not hard rubber I'm trying to talk about. Okay. So when it hits the floor, what will happen? Let's say you have a very good camera in your hand. Okay. You are able to capture the picture during its travel, and at the instant it is able to hit the floor. So at the instant it is hitting the floor, do you think this kind of a scenario will exist? Or slightly after it has hit the ground, what do you think will happen to this shape of the ball? It will
Sir,
slightly,
Then
it will get slightly deformed. Maybe something like this. Only maybe for a fraction of a second. Why? So you can see some part of the ball going inside. Why is it happening? Because of the elasticity of this material, correct? And it is hitting a rough surface. It is hitting a rigid surface. right? But after it bounces back, what will happen? Again, it will go into a complete spherical shape. So what is happening? So what is happening to it? It is able to regain its original shape. So here I can say it is deformed for that fraction of second. Again, it has come back to its original position. So this kind of a process is what is called as restitution. So to put it in simple terms, in physics, we say restitution is a process where the object is able to recover its original shape. Okay, from this idea, the name is given as coefficient of restitution. They called it as coefficient because it's only a number. If you see dimensionally, it doesn't have any value. Dimensionally, you're dividing velocity with velocity.
Yes,
Right,
sir. Ratio doesn't have a name.
so that is why it's called as a coefficient. Restitution is actually a word derived from the extent to which the material is able to restore its position.
Sir, even if the ball is hard, will it undergo restitution?
It will be. There will be a small deformation. There will be a small deformation. But only thing is, there is nothing like ideal rigid object. Every material in this world will have elasticity. But we cannot see. Extent to which it is getting deformed might be slightly less. But every material should have elasticity.
Okay, sir.
Okay. You learn about this in elasticity chapter, mechanical properties of solids. See, but of course, I'll not be discussing these stuff. I'll go into technical details. See, if I have to give you a simple example, like you say your house, let's say your house is on main road. Okay, you have too many vehicles traveling. I'm not sure if you guys have experienced this. Whenever there is a heavy vehicle traveling, beside your house or something like that, let's say you're in a place like that, have you ever felt the vibration?
Yes, sir.
This will happen, right? So when will something vibrate? When the particles are disturbed from their equilibrium position, right? Means when you're talking about a building inside which you're there, we will think it is rigid. But what is happening? It is vibrating. Means your building is also having some elastic property associated. If that is not there, right, what will happen is it can't withstand. It start cracking. That's a completely different subject, Michko. But I'm just trying to give you a vision. You're able to understand. So there is nothing like how we say there is nothing like perfectly smooth surface, because every surface will have friction. Theoretically, we are reading that there is a frictionless surface. In a similar way, no material is completely rigid. It will have some elastic properties. It is because of the chemical structure and all those things. It is because of the atomic structure, all those things come into picture. Right? We are not getting to the microscopic details, but to speak on outer level, yes, it does happen.
Okay.
To answer it, okay. Inelastic collision, perfectly inelastic. I hope these things are clear, right? Why I told coefficient of restitution is 0 for perfectly inelastic is because what happens in perfectly inelastic collisions? Both objects stick together. When they stick together, what will be the value of V2 and V1? They should be the same. See, if two objects are moving together, let's say you're sitting inside a car, your velocity and the car's velocity is the same. Right? In a similar way, V2 will be equal to V1, means both objects are sticking together. So V2 and V1 are same, V2 minus V1 will be 0. That is the reason why E is equal to 0 for perfectly inelastic collision, whereas E is equal to 1 for perfectly elastic collision. So we don't say perfectly elastic, generally elastic. It's an ideal situation. Okay. So keeping all these points in mind, what is our objective actually? What did I say at the starting of this derivation? What is our job? We need to derive the final velocities of both the objects after collision. Right. So we have this equation in our hand. M1 U1 plus M2 U2 is equal to M1 V1 plus M2 V2. Now observe M1 U1 plus M2 U2 is equal to M1 V1 plus M2 into what is the value of V2, guys? So this is the equation I have in my hand. What do I say V2 is? V2 is U1 plus V1 minus U2. U1 plus V1 minus. So m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equal to m1 v1 plus m2 u1 plus m2 v1 minus m2 u2. Okay. So m1 into m1 u1 plus this there no, this will come to the left hand side. So how much is that? 2 m2 u2 is equal to m1 plus m2 into v1 plus m2 u1. Now I'll take this m2 u1 also to the other side. Okay. So what will be the value of v1, guys? 1 minute. I have to add some pages. Wait, I'm not sure. I lost the content again. I lost the content again. Can someone tell me what was the last equation that we saw? I'm not sure. There is some technical issues. You guys, has anyone written the last equation that we saw?
Sir, I wrote still m1 u1 plus 2 m2 u2.
Okay. Let's see if it's there. Everything else is there. Okay. See, but I know the equation is there. Anyway, I'll write it. So m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2. Correct? So m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equal to, we remember this, v2 minus v1 is equal to u1 minus u2. So v2 is equal to u1 minus u2 plus v1. So m1 into v1 plus m2 into v2 is u1 minus u2 plus v1. m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equal to m1 v1 plus m2 u1 minus m2 u2 plus m2 v1. So this will come to the other side. This will also come to the other side, right? So I can write m1 minus m2 into u1 plus m2 u2 plus m2 u2, that is 2 m2 u2 is equal to m1 plus m2 into v1. So what will be the value of v1? v1 will be m1 minus m2 by m1 plus m2 into u1 plus 2m2 divided by m1 plus m2 into u2. So this is the final velocity of the which object? Of the first object. Okay. In a similar way, I'll tell you how to remember. You have to remember this equation, but there is a method, don't worry. So v2 will be 2m1 by m1 plus m2 into m2 minus m1 divided by m1 plus. Okay. So similarly, if you try to calculate it algebraically, V2 will come out as this value 2m1 divided by m1 plus m2 into u1 plus m2 minus m1 divided by m1 plus m2 into u1. Sorry, u2. Guys, I hope you have completed writing.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So how to remember, this is all about the final velocities of objects in one-dimensional elastic collision. Okay. I'm talking about one-dimensional elastic. It's not applicable for every elastic. Okay. So V1 and V2. Put a bracket, multiply it with U1 plus put a bracket and multiply it with U2. Divide everything with M1 plus M2. Here also it is going to be M1 plus M2. Okay. So when you're finding for V1, here it will be M1 minus M2 and here it will be 2M2. Okay. Similarly, here it is something into U1 plus something into U2. What should you write in the denominators? M1 plus M2, M1 plus M2. Right. When you're calculating V2, see, when you calculated V1, it was 2M2 U2, right? When you're calculating V2, it will be 2M1 U1. Similarly, for V1, it is M1 minus M2. For V2, it will be M2 minus M2. So this is how you remember the formula. You might get problems based on this. Please tell me.
Sir, even in inelastic collision, the total linear momentum is going to get conserved, right?
Yes.
So this formula can be used there too, right?
No. There you have to see. Here you could use it because V2 minus V1 was exactly equal to U1 minus U2. Whereas in the case of inelastic collision, you will write E times U1 minus U2. This E will come into picture. Here the value of E is 1, no? That is why
Okay, yes, sir, understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Whereas perfectly inelastic is very easy. You don't have any formula and all. You just have to write the momentum equation. You will get the answer in one step. Okay. Now, there are some special cases. See, with this chapter is over anyways. The special cases I'll explain. And in the next class, I'll teach you some problems also on how to solve them. Okay. So this concept is there in the elastic and inelastic collision in 1 and 2 dimensions. You have both the dimensions. Yes. So just verifying the syllabus if it is there or not. Okay, guys. So special case first. If U1 is 0 and U2 is U. Okay. M1 is M and M2 is also M. So what is the meaning of this? So there are two objects, or I will change here. U1 is equal to U and U2 is U. Means there are two objects with the same mass. One is traveling with the velocity U and the other is at rest. So what will happen when an object at rest is being collided by a particle which is moving with the velocity. What do you think will happen? So V1 will be equal to, what will happen, guys? M1 minus M2. Here M1 and M2 both are, so you have to substitute it in this equation. M1 and M2 both are equal. So 0 times U1 plus what will happen? 2 times M divided by M1 plus M2 is 2M into U2 is 0. 2M will get cancelled, 0. Then what about V2? 2M1 by M1 plus M2 into U1. So 2M divided by 2M into U1 plus 0 times U2. This will be equal to U1, which is nothing but U itself. So what is the meaning of this, guys? Can you tell me?
Sir, after hitting, like this is same as that carom board thing, sir. For
Yes.
example,
The
if you,
striker will come to rest.
and the coin will undergo motion.
Yes, coin will undergo motion means the coin will start moving with the velocity with which the striker was initially moving before the collision. Right? Provided they both are of same mass. That is more important. Okay. Okay. Now I'm taking M1 as M and M2 is a mass which is very much greater than M and U1 is 0. U1 is U and U2 is 0. The meaning of this is, let's say there is a ball which is thrown against a rigid wall. So when you throw a ball with velocity U against a rigid wall and if elastic collision takes place, then what is going to be the value of V1? I'm giving you 1 minute time, find out and tell me.
Will it be negative velocity of U?
Negative of what?
Initial velocity of U.
I don't. Let's check. So M1 minus M2 is there, no? M minus a very great value capital M divided by M plus a very great value capital M into U1 plus 2 times capital M divided by small m plus capital M into 0. Right. Then what about V2?
V2 will be 0, sir.
Two M divided by small m plus capital M into U1 plus M2 minus M1, capital M minus small m divided by capital M plus small m into 0. So this is going to be 0. Remember, when capital M is very much greater than small m, okay, when capital M is very much greater than small m, then we can say M minus capital M as minus m and M plus capital M as plus m. Okay, if that is the case, then this will give you minus 1. So V1 will be equal to minus U1 and V2 will be equal to, this value is approximated to 0. This is also 0. V2 is 0. Means the wall will still remain at rest only because it is rigid and fixed. Right? What the meaning of this statement is?
Sir, it is bounced back with the same velocity.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Third situation. M1 is equal to capital M. It's a heavier object. And M2 is equal to small m, where small m is very much less than capital M. Okay. And U1 is U, U2 is 0. Now calculate what is the value of V1. V1 is M1 minus M2 divided by M1 plus M2 into U1 plus something into 0. What about V2? 2 times capital M divided by small m plus capital M into U plus something into 0. So what will this value be? It is approximated to 1. So V1 will be equal to U, and this will become 2m divided by capital M into U. Capital M and capital M get cancelled. It will be 2U. So V2 is equal to 2 times U. What is the meaning of this, guys? What is the meaning of this? Means the first object will continue to move with the same velocity, whereas the second object will move with a velocity twice as that of the first object. Means, to put it in simple terms, it will fly away. For example, there is a rock which is going and hitting a small ball, and the ball is at rest. If the rock goes and hits ball with speed u, the rock will continue to move with the same speed u, whereas the ball will move with the speed of 2u. Okay. So this is all about one-dimensional collision.
Sir,
Please tell me.
if the mass of the rock was considered to be smaller than the mass of the ball, then it wouldn't move, right, after collision?
Which would not move?
Rock. Okay.
Rock would have bounced back. If this mass is lesser than this mass, it would have bounced back. But it will not bounce back with the same velocity. It will bounce back with a lesser velocity.
Okay, sir.
You will be able to understand that if you take some random numbers and check. See, for example, you want to take this as 10 kilogram and you want to take this as 8 kilogram. Test and see, simply. Take its velocity to be 5 meters per second. So simply substitute in that value and test and see. You will get certain numbers. In that number, you will get V1 as the negative value of U. That negative sign indicates that the ball will travel back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's it, guys. So this is all about the one-dimensional elastic collision. See, actually with this, the chapter is over, but based on the two-dimensional collision, there are some example problems and all those things that I'll do it in the next class. Okay. The problem itself will take 15 to 20 minutes. I'll tell you which problem also. This one. This one will take some time. 6.13. Then I'll do some more problems based on collisions. Okay. I hope things are clear, right, from today's class?
Yes, sir.
Right. So that's it, guys. Right. So next class, remind me, I have to discuss about power also. Because we finished work and energy, now we need to discuss about power. That will do it. Okay.
Okay,
Sir?
sir.
Please tell me.
Sir, actually, we told at the beginning, right? For example, if we have mass and velocity, we have both momentum and kinetic energy.
Yes.
Why did, like, about kinetic energy, should we learn?
Should we learn in the sense? No. See, what I told is I'm just giving you an idea of thought process. That's it. Generally, wherever object is having, see, I'm telling like this one. Suppose you're going in a car. Okay, car has some mass. Okay, and the car, let's say you're accelerating with a certain value. So since car has mass and acceleration associated with it, what are the physical quantity that you can think of by relating these two quantities? If suppose I put something like this, if there is an object of mass m and that object is accelerating, I'm saying use whatever permutation combination of these two parameters you want and give me a final expression. Mass and acceleration are given to you. What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Force.
That's it. That in a similar way, I told wherever there is an object having mass and velocity, the first thing that should come to your mind is that object has momentum. In a similar way, since it has momentum, it also has kinetic energy. That is what I meant. For this, you need not learn anything separately. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, and why is the coefficient of restitution in inelastic collision between 0 to 1?
Because the energy is lost. You try to derive and see, you will understand. V2 minus V1 is not equal to U1 minus U2. That's what will happen. V2 minus V1 will be less than U1 minus U2 because there is a loss of energy taking place. Kinetic energy is lost, no? That is the reason.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so that's it, guys. Raghav, you can send me the problem that you have doubt. Okay, you send it to the student support number. I'll look at it and I'll get back by today. Or maximum by tomorrow morning. Okay. You told some Newton's laws of motion. You had some.
Sir, it's Nitish.
Sorry?
Sir, it's Nitish.
Oh, Nitish. Sure. No, Nitish, you send me the doubt. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, guys, we can log off.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.